This video is not intended for children.
Hello everyone. Our topic this week was requested by Nate Dogg. We'll be going over the Inquisition from the Warhammer 40K franchise.
Okay, so the Inquisition is probably one of the two most recognized elements of the 40K verse, the other being the Space Marines. If you're even vaguely familiar with Warhammer 40K, you've probably heard of Space Marines, and you've likely heard the term heresy thrown around quite a bit. The Inquisition is the source of all the anti-heretical shouting. In broad terms, the Inquisition, formerly known as the Holy Orders, plural of the Emperor's Inquisition, act as the not-so-secret police of the Empire of Man, protecting the Empire from threats within and without, with little to no oversight depending upon how in-depth you look at the situation. In the modern day of the 40K setting, the Inquisition is the Imperial boogeyman. When they show up, people listen, by law or by force, and their decrees carry the weight of the word of the Emperor himself. They've got their hands in everything, and they are as responsible for keeping the Empire technologically and socially stagnant as they are with preserving its continued existence.
The seeds of the Inquisition were sown roughly 10,000 years prior to the time of the games, near the end of the Emperor of Man's formal reign, before he was rendered a magic vegetable protecting humanity from the silence of his golden throne. For more detail on the Emperor, see our video on him here, and linked in the description below. Seeing the failings of his then-current efforts and worried for the future of his empire, the Emperor charged his second-in-command, Malcador the Sigillite, with finding men of character in order to form a group that would seek out the traitor, the Xeno, and the demon. The Emperor had a bit of an humanity-first agenda going on that remains to the modern day. Following his master's orders, Malcador presented the Emperor with 12 whom he found to possess those criteria. A few Space Marines that formed what would eventually become the Order of the Grey Knights, a chapter of Space Marines specifically dedicated to fighting demons and who worked directly with the Inquisition, as well as a few normal humans who would go on to form the Inquisition itself.
Tellingly, for the way the Inquisition would operate for the rest of its existence, effectively the first act of the Inquisition was to split in half. There are two broad primary ideological philosophies held by most of the Inquisition's members: puritanical beliefs or radical beliefs. Inquisitional Puritans are those who refuse to use the weapons and measures of the enemies of mankind, be they alien or demon. As such, depending on the extremism of the Inquisitor in question, there are numerous subsects under both the puritanical and radical umbrellas. They may believe anything on a spectrum from deciding all actual alien technology is abhorrent, all the way to alien-inspired and human-developed technology is still unacceptable. They may tolerate only psychers, magic/psionic users in 40K, that have undergone sanctioned Imperial training, or believe all psychers should be destroyed, as they can be influenced or possessed by demons. Similarly, they may believe that aliens can be dealt with diplomatically but kept at arm's length, or decide that aliens should be purged and kept as far from humanity as possible. Inquisitorial radicals, on the other hand, believe in fighting fire with fire, using the weapons of their enemies and others to gain the advantage for mankind, with beliefs that have similar ranges in extremism to Puritans. For example, believing on one end that psychers are great if well-trained and controlled, but the forces of chaos, evil, corruption, bad things, should be avoided. And on the other end of the spectrum saying, screw it, use all the chaos toys, they'll bite their creators just as badly as they bite us. Two basic opposing theories from these radical and puritanical ideologies were that A, the Emperor needed to be returned to life and health. Remember, this was right after the Emperor, who had ruled over his empire for thousands of years, had nearly been killed. Or that B, the Emperor's current state was all part of his larger plan, and that to interfere with that would be foolish. Unable to reconcile these differences, the fledgling Inquisition split, with half of its members flying off into deep space to research the tools of their enemies for use in defense of humanity, while the other half stayed on Earth and started forming countermeasures against such heresy in order to protect humanity. One of many grand ironies about this split is that the two sides lost contact and, centuries later, reconnected and joined forces, both organizations having long since lost the details of their origin to time and finding that they had common ground in their goals, helping shape the modern Inquisition in the process.
By the modern day of the 40K verse, the Inquisition's scope and mission has grown dramatically in step with the growth of the Empire itself. The Inquisition is an odd order from an organizational perspective in that, on paper, every confirmed Inquisitor is essentially the same rank. The Inquisition is made up of thousands of Inquisitors, with personal goals, ideologies, and cronies, all bent toward whatever task most interests the Inquisitor in question, and, presumably, with the good of the Empire in mind. The Inquisition was formed as the hand of the Emperor himself. Technically, they can pull rank on almost everyone, and while they don't, technically, run everything, they can, on paper, step in and command almost anyone to do almost anything. The only notable exception are the Emperor's personal guards, who can ignore inquisitorial orders on the basis of, I'm busy guarding the God Emperor of mankind here, and who have the power to tell any Inquisitor too stupid to realize that to shut up. But that's on paper. In reality, while any Inquisitor can call on this power, it's the sort of thing that has to be done more tactfully the higher up the sociopolitical ladder you go. An Inquisitor can command or demand something from anyone, including the government leaders of Earth itself, and thus anyone in the Empire, and get it. But that could paint a target on their back in the future or have other political and professional consequences down the line. Additionally, the Space Marines have a similar mandate to the Inquisition in that they are granted their directives from the direct order of the Emperor. As such, an Inquisitor's ability to order Space Marines around is something of a gray area, and diplomatic solutions are the way of the wise in order to avoid being ignored at best or gutted at worst when trying to order the Space Marines around. What's more, thanks to the incredible power wielded by individual Inquisitors, there is an entire order of Inquisitors dedicated to investigating and prosecuting their fellows if they've overstepped their bounds and are thus guilty of heresy.
Because all members of the Inquisition are basically equal, influence comes from one of a handful of places. Most universally, experience and reputation. Wise Inquisitors will listen to the counsel of seasoned elders, but are not necessarily beholden to such advice. Similarly, Inquisitors who are known to have gathered power, prestige, and success can garner more support from their fellows, regardless of comparative years of service. The Inquisition is also loosely broken up into orders, which also serve as forms of power and organization to varying degrees. An order is realistically just a coalition of like-minded Inquisitors with a focus on one aspect of preserving the Empire. For example, considering Inquisitors can do basically anything they want, up to and including ordering the destruction of a planet if it's been deemed corrupted beyond reclamation. As previously mentioned, there is an entire order of Inquisitors dedicated to solely investigating their own to ensure that they are not in some way found guilty of heresy. Heresy being loosely defined as anything the Inquisitors in question find to be anti-Empire, like abuse of power, which, as you can imagine, is a very broad category. The influence and size of individual orders rise and fall with circumstances within the Empire, with some orders being relegated to technical existence only for a few years at a time, while others are in constant operation. The three most consistently prevalent orders are known as the Ordo Malleus, the Ordo Hereticus, and the Ordo Xenos, each formed or restructured in response to major events throughout the Empire's history.
The Ordo Malleus is dedicated to battling demons, stamping them out of reality for the preservation of mankind, and deploying the Grey Knights when particularly menacing demonic activity is discovered. The Ordo Hereticus hunts down and cleanses the galaxy of those within the Empire they deem a threat to its continued existence and stability. Notably, rogue psychers, heretics, traitors, and on the extreme end, mutants. The Order Xenos deals with the threat of aliens, learning about and undermining hostile alien influences to the Empire, preferably before enemy plans can be brought to large-scale confrontations, but with the full capability of calling in legions of soldiers using their inquisitorial influence if need be. There are also numerous lesser orders, with dedications to everything from research oversight to maintaining or redacting historical records, watching the other branches of government, and more. Membership in an order is both informal and unrequired, acting more as a focus and network for those with similar concerns and ideals than a school or college to which they are rigidly loyal.
An individual Inquisitor may be a member of one order, several, transition through numerous orders throughout their lifetime, or never join an order at all. Similarly, due to the scope of the threats to the Empire they deal with, an Inquisitor may perform their duties in the open or in secret, with as many Inquisitors nudging events from the shadows as kicking down the front door and shouting orders to those in power. An Inquisitor is looked on as a staunch and steadfast defender of the Empire, if not necessarily its people. After all, what's the sacrifice of a few thousand to save a theoretical few million in the future? Their word is law, their gaze all-seeing, and their judgments both swift and terrible. Seriously, if an Inquisitor just has you shot, consider yourself lucky. Warhammer 40K is where the term grimdark comes from, after all. Considering that reputation then, and the power that comes with it, one might wonder why others don't try to abuse the power of the Inquisition, and the answer is twofold. First, the symbol of office for the Inquisition, most often referred to as a rosette, has numerous encryptions, DNA scanners, and security redundancies set into it. Thus, most often, if you're not the Inquisitor to whom the rosette is keyed, you physically can't present the Inquisition badge to office to back up your fake inquisitorial claim. Second, and honestly perhaps more importantly, the Inquisition considers its reputation incredibly important, as the fear, awe, and loyalty inspired by the very presence of an Inquisitor is essential to the success of their work. As such, on the rare occasion, when someone successfully impersonates an Inquisitor, they are hunted down mercilessly until they are found, and then they are dealt with in as horrific and public a manner as possible, ensuring that the trial and punishment is loudly published throughout the Empire, both to discourage such actions by other heretics in the future, and publicly cleansing the Inquisition's name from any misdeeds carried out by the fake.
And that's basically the Inquisition. Thoroughly expected, thoroughly nasty protectors of the Empire of Man. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future, do like Nate Dogg and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.